Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Briefcase in the Barn. Today's episode, we start with talking about a story from when I was at MDT, setting a big goal and achieving that. We switch over to anger versus lust, then talk about stagflation and if we have an incoming revolution or not. Talk a little bit about renting versus owning, church versus your soul, and the end times. Hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. Welcome back, guys, to another episode. Just me and Gary this week. Back to the
regular programming.
Regular programming.
My wife said we should talk ahead of the podcast for a few minutes, which we did not do today, obviously.
About what?
Just have our little chit chat ahead of time. I don't know. I always feel like the best stuff is usually said before and after the podcast.
Get the flow going. I had an idea yesterday.
Yeah, I think that was it. She said the back half of the one was way better. I think with the guys, with the U.S. guys.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense, yeah. Start is usually rougher.
Yeah.
I actually had an idea of every podcast we'd come into these, bring two ideas, and we just put them into a bowl or something and just pick them out as they go, or bring guests on. Everyone writes an idea down, throw it in.
Something to talk about.
And fly at her.
I always have I'll just hear random things and be like, well, we should talk about that, or read the newspaper, read the National Post, and be like,
you got anything today?
Interesting. I mean, I think I put some things in the show notes. I can't remember what I all put in there. A bunch of Bible verses while I was sitting in church on Sunday.
Subprime.
We're coming into auction season, right? So I'm pretty mixed up.
Oh, yeah. When is the auction?
April 2nd, April 1st, April Fool's Day is the free dinner in Chilliwack if you happen to live in the Lower Mainland, Fraser Valley.
Okay. Is that
it's an open invite. It is a week from... Man, it's a week from next Wednesday. Sorry. Well, it'll be a week from when this comes out. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah. We always record basically a week early.
Yeah. So the last one that came out right now is the one with Americans. So good
and it's interesting because we hardly talked about Iran. Really, I mean, we talked about it.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating. It's one of the things I put in the show notes. It's just about the price of oil and how much, not even oil, but how much stuff goes through that strait that they have blocked off.
Your oil stocks are just skyrocketing?
Shooting to the moon. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels
Sell
really
and go buy
weird.
their dealership or what?
No, not that much. They're not going up that kind of money kicking around. It's just interesting how the price of so much stuff is attached to.
Yes.
And people also use it as an excuse, right?
Leverage.
We had a politician he used to be the mayor of Vancouver, Gregor Robertson, was in the House of Commons in the last week and basically said that the reason that houses are unaffordable is because there's a war in Iran. Which
they get away with saying the crazy.
He's a meathead anyways, but yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Whatever.
I had something cool I saw this week, and I'll put it on the screen. I'll show you here. But I had there was an article that came out about something that MDT did in the chassis space.
I saw the Instagram post.
Okay, so the Instagram post.
They were voted number one.
Yeah. So that was for specifically the ACC chassis. So just for anybody that's listening, I used to work at MDT Sporting Goods, which sold chassis and accessories for bolt action rifles. So chassis is something that, if you think of a regular rifle, you have like a wooden stock.
The chassis would be the same thing.
Yeah, it's out of aluminum. And so you take a round action of a rifle and it gets sucked down into an aluminum chassis because it's a V-block. It doesn't move. So if you're shooting at 100 yards, you're going to be more accurate if you take 5 shots, because otherwise at 1,000 yards, it's going to be way off. So anyway, we sold those. And back in 2018, an article came out from Calvin Zant, same guy that had this article, and about what the pros use for the PRS, which is like the NHL of shooting. So you have to shoot it would be like 20 stages over 2 days, 10 stages a day. You have to shoot off a fence post at 400, 800, and 1,200 yards. You have
lay on the ground.
120 seconds and 10 shots, whatever. And so that was the sport, but we weren't in it at all. Nothing at all. And so
in 2018, MDT wasn't.
No, we sold a lot of chassis, but we didn't. Nothing for
professionals.
Nothing for the competitive shooting space. And so I was quite bothered by this, and I was set on a mission to change it. And so I called Bill from Rifle Shooter in New York. He was a writer I knew in New York, and I said, "How do we get to the top of this list?" And he's like, "Talk to this guy named Buck Hawley down in Georgia, and he's a shooter, and he'll work with you." So I was like, "Okay." So I called him,
and he was a professional shooter.
Yeah. Well, and professional is like there's probably maybe the top 5 guys do it full time. Like
everybody else are just really accurate, having
rich
fun
blue
doing
collar
it.
guys.
Okay,
That's
funny.
what it is.
That have time to just piss around.
That's right. Yeah, I can spend money on guns because these guns
They're
are
very
not cheap.
expensive. Yeah.
And so I reached out to him, and what he had started doing was making chassis himself. They were just really ugly, big, huge chunks of aluminum, but because they were so heavy, when you threw it on a barbed wire fence and it's really, really heavy, you're way more stable, right? Because the whole point of taking a follow-up shot
shooting.
is you need to be really, really stable. And so he found out a way to do that. And so I went to Martin and I said, we should make these HCG chassis. And he was the CEO, and he's like, what? No, you need a plan. Like, come present a plan on what you need to do. It's like, oh, okay. So I need to make a business case on how many I thought we could sell, and that I wanted an engineer for a year.
And what were they called?
The chassis that we wanted to make,
Yeah.
it was ACC, which stands for Adjustable Core Competition Chassis.
Okay.
So basically did a presentation to him and to Brad, I think it was the engineering manager, and said, this is how many I think we could sell. This is why I think we should make it. And this is the guy I think we should use. Got an engineer for a year. So I got it approved, and it was one of our best selling chassis ever. And I ended up selling it to Savage as well a couple years later.
So because I get the idea of having shooters that are, sponsored by MDT and just using your product, because that, to me, that's how you would build your brand. How did you guys sell, how was MDT selling so many chassis back in 2016, 17, 18 without having even been at all known by professionals?
Because regular guys wanted it. So you can upgrade your rifle at home by just taking the stock off and putting a cool chassis on. It looks really cool. We call them Safe Queens. A huge percentage of our customers had guns to show to their friends on Friday nights, but never shot them.
Definitely me.
Yeah. And so a lot of just want cool looking guns, but we needed to make one that was actually like so underneath the barrel channel, there was a big section for weights, and on the outside weights could attach. And I had like a vertical grip, because when your hand's bent when it's like at an angle, right? So you need to have it straight. And so everything was designed for specifically this sport. Yeah. And so we listened to the shooters, and they made it.
So that would be selling to everybody now. The ACC would sell to everybody.
Well, if you want to do competition, that's the top selling one now. So MDT finally 3 years after I quit made it to the top of this list.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, we were never on there. So I was always pushing. So the second thing I did was build a team. So I had to figure out how to find guys that were in the sport, convince them to try our stuff. Sign them, write contracts to hey, this is what you get. For every win, you get so much money. Okay. Pay your salary.
Makes sense.
Things like that.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So I seen this week, and I just remember setting that goal. It at the time was quite audacious, and the competitors were strong, and so it's cool to see those things. You have anything like that, like a goal that you set that took you a long time to achieve, that you've been thinking about for a long time, or are you just always short term?
No, I mean, I think that it's interesting that you asked that. I think that most people don't realize how powerful it is to set goals. I read the book, I've talked about it on here before, by Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time, which your brother Martin actually told me to read. Yeah. And that book has been, and just him in general, I do read some of his stuff. It's a bit much. Anybody that sends out an email and it's all capitals, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. What is this? Politician raising money? Stop the madness. Not unless one of my kids is dying, it's not an emergency. Yeah. Just be quiet, right? But tone her down. But he basically would say, hey, you have your 5 daily non-negotiables. And one of the things he talked about is daily is writing, right? And I don't do that enough, but I do the rest of them.
Journaling. Yeah,
I do the rest of them, and I will start journaling. You can hold me to it.
Give you access to my software, and you can just write it on there.
Yeah, just literally in a book, right? even so, I take notes at church, and it's fascinating, even just that process, how
solidifies things.
You're you're listening to stuff. It's a lot more powerful when you write it down, right? Yeah. And I think so I've had goals of starting farming, right? But even that, it was I never really thought it was possible almost until I started it. I always wanted to, but it was just all of a sudden it was somewhat of a possibility. And I'm well, this is wild. Well, I'm going to try this, even if it's a disaster. It's my dream to farm, and I never thought it was possible. Just do it. Yeah. And I mean, it's fascinating. I always feel, and I don't think most people realize this that aren't trying anything, but if I knew how hard most things were before I did them, even this last venture of the thing that I started,
you wouldn't do them.
You wouldn't do them. If you could see all the road bumps, it would be enough to steer most people away, right? And so it's always that balancing act of, hey, seeking wisdom, making calculated decisions and seeking wise counsel, while in the same hand, you have to have, like I always say, the future favors the bold, right? And, sometimes you just gotta,
But I think it's also healthy just to do hard things.
Like super healthy.
So if it's not a crazy audacious goal, like what
are you doing?
What are you wasting time with? Like, you just want an easy life and everything to go like calm and
most people do. It's fascinating, Kyle. The bulk of the society is literally just trying to have the most pleasant life possible.
I guess maybe that's what I'm doing too, but I just think maybe not.
Well, it's not happening. I don't know if that's what you're trying to do, but it's not happening.
Well, I mean, goals get in the way. Yeah, I mean, if you want to sit, I guess it depends what your goals are.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's life is really short and it is really short, but it doesn't feel that way, right? Like, moms always have a saying, like my wife always is saying, the days are long and the years are short, right? Yeah. And so everybody's always like, oh, treasure these years. Yeah, like these, like.
No, it's hard. Yeah.
Right? It's hard in the moment, right? Because things are messy and things are hard and life's hard. But at the same time, I totally get it, where people are like, hey, obviously we'll miss a lot of the struggles that we're dealing with now, right? So
someone did say it to Nicole the other day because she was saying how tired she was.
Yeah.
And the person was like, it gets better. Like, it gets better when you don't have all those little young kids running around. It gets better.
A lot of people say it gets worse.
That's true too. Yeah. Hey guys, just 60 seconds here for a quick shout out. I want to talk to you about my buddy Rhett Dolhan. I work with him at MDT Sporting Goods and is the main video editor there and videographer for MDT, and has made amazing videos over the years. I really enjoyed working with him, and I also work with him on the Briefcase The Barn. He was the editor for the first 20, 30 episodes, and it's just a super talented guy. And he also does wedding videos now, and so for a very good price, you can book him for this summer. And so if you know someone that is getting married, would you please pause the podcast a second and just text them Rhett's website and let him know that that's an option for them. He's booking to the summer. Things book up quick. So that's RHETTDOLHAN.com, RhettDolhan.com. So RHETTDOHLAN.com. Great guy, booking right now for weddings in the summer, very talented, and I can definitely vouch for him. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to him, and let's get back to the show. Something that I read that was interesting this week from John Piper. Switching gears,
yeah.
If someone hadn't noticed, he said he is more scared of anger than lust. This is his quote: "I'm scared of anger more than I'm scared of lust. It's my besetting sin. Anger is emotionally destructive. It's so destructive in a marriage, for example. It eats everything." I thought it was sobering and worth pondering, because obviously we know that lust, for example, can destroy a lot, but anger, bitterness, like lack of forgiveness, I think that's it was just coming from a guy like him too, saying that, I think it's pretty powerful.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Do you agree that anger is a secondary emotion?
Yes.
Do you agree that under all anger would either be sadness or rejection?
Sadness, rejection. I need to think about it to give like a hard yes answer.
It's really funny because I had a guy that I do business with the other day. This came up because I felt like I was really getting shafted in something here lately, and he was listening. He's a good friend of mine, and I was explaining that to him. I'm like, oh, underneath this, it's actually just really, I have real disappointment. I have disappointment that somebody that I trusted and somebody who I had a good history with, this turning into this is just really, it's making me kind of. Obviously, I'm mad right now, or I feel angry, but I know that underneath this anger is just real disappointment and how I'm being treated. He's like, no, like, no, I'm just pissed, like just straight up rage. Has nothing to do. It was an interesting, he's like, I can have it where I'm just angry, and maybe you can. I don't know.
Well, especially if you're not in tune to emotions. I'm not sure how much into this guy's to his emotions.
Oh, he's really in tune to his anger. I can tell you that.
Oh yeah, that if you're in tune to that and not actually real emotions, you're going to just feel that.
Yeah. I feel like I got cut off talking about stagflation. That was on the I think with the no, was it? Oh no, it was with Joe. It was Joe at the end.
It was the end of last week.
Joseph's.
The Japs.
The Japs. No, and here I just feel like it's really interesting lately because I think I've talked about a property.
Maybe back up. Stagflation. Define stagflation.
Yeah, stagflation will be like a super common term, and politicians will start using it at some point. It's just briefly talked about now, mostly by economists. But like stagflation would basically be when, you know, how we had inflation in high asset prices going up, or the devaluation of money would be more accurate. That happened basically in 2021 because of the printing of money that the government did. Now we're going to have stagflation, which we've had before in Canada, I think probably in the 70s and early 80s, where basically you still have everything kind of going up in price, like definitely creeping up of prices, but at the same time you're in a recession. So, you know, typically what will happen in any country that has a central bank is that if you have inflation, they'll raise interest rates to hopefully like slow the economy down a bit. And if you have a recession or deflation, or hopefully not deflation, that would be really negative. But like, you know, if you start to see inflation numbers get really low and unemployment rise, they'll start to lower interest rates, which they've done quite a bit since 22. I mean, you know, prime's dropped a lot. But it's fascinating. Now we're kind of entering this season where people are still raising prices. Employees that never got raises through, you know, or not enough of them, like costs are still obviously much higher than they were in 2018, 19. Those people now are finally clamoring for raises. Maybe they've been really patient. So you have this kind of perpetual snowball. And I know it because I'm trying to hire people right now. And I have 2 people that I'm potentially hiring for good money. And it's like fascinating what people kind of not even expect, but just literally need. You know, like I think the idea of somebody, like, it's funny how I think the average wage in Canada is still 64,000 or 58,000, you know, but nobody in our area is making 58,000 and paying rent and feeding a family. Like, you know, obviously one income, right? That's just not going to work. I guess I shouldn't say that. Maybe they do, but it'd be interesting to have that person on and explain how their budget looks, you know, because people do live way cheap. Like, it's fascinating how cheap people can live, right?
Oh,
like,
it's
you know,
incredible.
if you could find really cheap rent, then, you know, that'd be a big part of your cost of living, right? If you're renting a house for $1,200 from someone for a smoking deal instead of paying $3,000. And that, on that note, rent is coming down. So, you know, I'm talking about stagflation and things going up. Housing costs are going down. But taxes on houses aren't going down, and everything associated to it, fixing and repairs. And
this is the online definition. Stagflation is when the economy is doing badly, but prices are still rising at the same time.
Yeah, great example.
In simple layman's terms, businesses aren't growing much. Many people struggle to find jobs, or wages don't increase, but the cost of things like food, gas, and rent keeps going up. Normally, when the economy slows down, prices stop rising as fast. Stagflation is usually because both problems happen together. Very simple example. Imagine the situation. Your paycheck stays the same. You lose hours. Groceries, gas, rent get more expensive. So you have less money coming in, higher expensive. Isn't that?
That's exactly what's happening.
So, and doesn't the same thing happen in inflation?
Yes, but in inflation, which happened in 21, there was so much money around that everybody could just pay more. And everybody felt wealthier because asset prices were rising. Now you're having everything getting to be less. Houses are dropping. And in our country, now this is not for all our listeners. Some people live in an area where housing prices, they don't look on a month by month on how much they go up and down. But in our economy, we do, because we live in a real estate driven economy, unfortunately, where, you know, there's not really that much stuff actually being made. And so here, people feel either house wealthy or house poor. And very quickly, it's all about asset values, which is just bizarre, right? But it's, you know, so people have most of their material wealth is tied up in some type of asset, which is pretty normal, but not necessarily in real estate, right?
So I started this conversation with referring to stagflation as the Japs, but hasn't this happened in Japan for the last 10, 15 years, that they have had stagflation and that the economy hasn't really done anything?
Didn't have stagflation. They had basically almost deflation. They say, I don't agree with it.
Okay.
But if you looked at their numbers that came out, they perpetually keep interest rates almost negative, if you can believe it. Where, like, you would put $1 into a bond and you would get paid less money back after 5 years.
Oh, crazy.
Which is insane. The chickens are coming home to roost there. To me, it was all a facade of, you know, and there too, they have like a really aging population, which is a very similar issue to what Canada's going to start to have now, especially now that we're not bringing in immigrants that have lots of kids, because most people that are Canadian citizens don't even have enough children to replace themselves,
it's like 1.4,
right?
right?
Yeah, it's really low. On the stagflation side, I think why it's fascinating is just the idea of, it's such a hard adjustment for people to realize that they can't charge more, right? Like, if you think of a business where it's like, hey, everything's getting more and more expensive, you have to charge more. And I think of it even at a shop where it's like, you know, theoretically the shop rate should be way higher, but like nobody can afford to pay more. Like nobody, like, you know what I mean? Like there's just, you always hit this kind of tipping point where all of a sudden, so then people are looking for deals. So there's lots of opportunity, I think, in that market, but ultimately the government, which controls they have the biggest handle on our economy, which is the interest rate, right? Because there's so much debt in our society, attached to prime, floating loans, everybody with their line of credits and everything. Everything is attached to that number, which is coming out. It'll have come out a week ago when this airs, and I think that they'll hold the interest rate, but I would think that in months from now, everybody's thinking the interest rates are going to rise in the back half of 26, and I would be betting that they'll go lower.
Okay.
Like did I tell you the story about the place in Surrey that I did the group of people I know did a mortgage on, and it's pretty interesting. So there's this development property in Surrey. This is like about an hour west of where we live, and some people lent money on this property in 2024. Kind of like already the bust had started to happen, but definitely the real speculative real estate boom was over. Now this property appraised, and it's a legitimate appraisal. Allegedly, it wasn't obviously legitimate in the end, but it appraised at 5.1 million. It was, a half acre in Surrey, kind of built for like a subdivision or whatever. And I think the guys lent about a little over $1 million, 1.2, 1.3. And that property instantly went into foreclosure. I don't think the person ever made a payment. And then, I heard that basically what happened was they got it appraised about a year ago now, like when it first got listed or whatever. They went and got a new appraisal because you have to, basically once something's court ordered, you still have to prove where you're going to list it. And these guys are thinking it's not worth close to 5 million. We hope we were only like 50% loan to value. Well, it turns out it appraised at 1.8. So now, you've lent 1.3, it's 1.8. Yeah. Yeah. No, it gets crazier. That property now, I heard, is literally listed at $1 million and has an accepted offer at 850,000 and is going to court at 850,000. So like that's just one property in the whole lower mainland of speculative ridiculousness where people have been, and it's mostly because, in my opinion, it's because of bad appraisals. Like whenever someone says to me, hey, my place is worth X because it has an appraisal, I'm like, well, tell the appraiser to buy it for that then. Yeah. Like appraisers don't buy anything. They just come in, and there again, I'm crapping on appraisers. Obviously, some of them are very honest and they would have stuff to back up what they're doing. But I know from real examples that stuff is I've done a lot of real estate transactions for myself and for other clients, that it means nothing. Yeah. The price is what a willing buyer, is going to pay that day, right? Yeah. And no different than an auction.
So do you think stagflation or like this is going to cause what do you see it? What problems do you see arising?
I see it being a problem because the issue is where people think that they'll be entitled to more. And I think especially on the bureaucratic side where they have so little connection with reality of what's really going on. Obviously people in the private sector, people that, even the guys that work at our shop or in any private business in Chilliwack, be like, oh, it's slowing down. Oh, we have less orders. I was at a window factory the other day, a huge window factory down the valley. And it's like, they've laid off a huge chunk of their staff. It was quiet in there, right? Yeah. Like those people are all very aware of what's happening. But your average person that works at City Hall, I guess if they're in the development side, they would see way less coming through. But they're not thinking they're getting laid off. Like how often do government employees get laid off? So there's a large swath of the population, firefighters, police officers. Some of them we can't let go because we absolutely need them for whatever. But, those are all debatable, questionable things. And I think by the time everybody realizes what's happening, it's always way too late. And that's why I'm saying, like, everybody thinks an interest rate hike is coming because oil's through the roof now and gas went up to $2 a liter, in Chilliwack today. And, so people think that's coming when I think it's contrarian. I think that in the reality is people are doing way worse than people think. Yeah. And it never plays out quick enough. Like, for example, if someone had to sell their house to pay off their debt or to get out of trouble, that's the very last thing that they would do because that's a big decision. Yeah. And those things are just starting to come. You can see piles and piles of listing on the real estate side.
Sure, Happy did that a bunch of years ago.
Yeah, well, and that was a question. You should answer that question today.
Oh, okay.
We've never answered that question. I think I've talked enough about stagflation. Yeah. Hard times are coming. There's lots of opportunity too. I mean, I say all that to say, hey, like obviously if you've been prudent and you've been wise, you'll be fine. It's just don't assume that you're always going to get to charge more and more and that rate things are going to go up forever, right? Yeah. So
yeah, I know. I think it's actually going to cause a whole bunch of problems in society because when you feel like you can't get ahead,
there's going to be a revolution.
It's gonna.
You think there's going to be a revolution in Canada?
No, I think
there's definitely going to be a revolution.
I think there's going to be huge government overreach and more control coming.
No, I think the lower class of society that are the have-nots, so to speak.
Dude, look what they did to peaceful truckers.
Yeah,
like you don't think they're going to like?
It's not happening again. No, times are changing.
Okay, well, we'll see.
We'll circle back.
We'll clip this.
I think there will be a revolution. I think that the gap between the rich and the poor is getting way too wide.
Okay, well, before the revolution comes, at least I think there's going to be way higher crime.
That's already happening.
It's going to be more depression, more suicide.
That's already happening.
All those things.
There's no suicide anymore because of MAID.
Oh, it's so upsetting.
It's bizarre.
It's so upsetting. But I mean, I think it just reminds me to be like, okay, we need to put our hope in something that does not rust or corrupt, or whatever the Bible verse exactly says, right? Like put your hope in things that people can't take away from you. Even just like practically thinking, if you put a huge amount of effort into your kids and in their 20s you have a great relationship with them, if the economy goes to shit, you're still going to have a great relationship with your kids. But if you don't, because you've only ever worked, now there's an extreme example, well, you're not going to have a relationship with your kids, and as soon as the economy goes bad or something else happens, it's not in your control.
Two horrible things in your hands.
Yeah, exactly. Like focus on stuff that you know is actually going to last. Which ties into this question. I'll read it. Mailbag. Hi, Kyle. Would you, this is anonymous, sent into the website. If you want to send a question in to the podcast, go to furiouslycurious.co, scroll to the bottom and hit podcast question. You can pop them in there anonymously. But here's a question. Hi, Kyle. Would you mind expanding on your journey with paying off debt and renting a house? I'm not sure how it is in BC, but in the community we live in, it seems frowned upon to rent and like you're less than. We started renting due to various reasons and have dealt with various comments about how we don't own a house. We've since grown a thicker skin and don't care because we know it's what's best for us, but I'm curious about your experience. Yeah, I mean, people think that you're less than because you rent. That says more about them than it does about you. But my experience is I knew for the health of my family, I needed to change careers and quit. And that meant I needed to sell my house. I had plans in the city to build a house, a little half acre in the country. And
was that your dream property?
I was pretty close. Yeah, it was closer to the highway, but it was like west facing and the sun and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it was more important. I mean, what are your priorities ultimately? Like, I think our value isn't based on, how smart we are with money or if we have a big business or not. Or I think it's just my family was more important than my money. So I'm renting is really what it comes down to. That's my experience. I don't, is that, do you think I can say more than that? Do you have any questions?
I guess, the argument a lot of people would say, hey, like, is it fiscally prudent to rent when, it's obviously rent and a mortgage payment are pretty similar for the most part, not as much lately, but to be fair, obviously rent is dropping now and housing payments haven't dropped a lot, or a lot of people are paying more than they were 5 years ago because their interest went up. But like, I guess what would you say to someone that would argue, well, like, isn't it just fiscally more responsible to be owning a house? Or?
Yeah, maybe, but if it's more responsible, you have the option, I would say go for it. But if you are going to be stressed out all the time
because you own a house,
and you're like really restricted and it's adding a whole bunch of tension to your marriage and everything else, like, I mean, we're not, like, what are your priorities? Like, live accordingly.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I guess I feel not torn, but I have like a unique perspective where we've rented in between places. And I think that renting in between owning can be really profitable if you're one of those people that likes to fix places up and sell. Yeah. A lot of people don't want to do the extra move. And then, you're just there again. That is stressful, just trying to find a house in a certain time. And numerous times we've rented in our life, all different types of places. And I don't feel any different when I rent a house. I think the only thing where I would struggle renting now would just be the idea that somebody could sell and obviously you'd have to move, which I think that's probably, to me, is the biggest downside of renting. Other than that, I would think the other thing is that most people are incapable of saving money as a general rule. And like I am. So like, I'm not going to like stockpile money or save any money for retirement or anything. Now, some people don't need to worry about that or whatever. But, if you're someone that wants to have a bit of a buffer, and that's what's interesting about how Randy Elkhorn talks about even retirement, right? Like so different than our culture of like, and I've seen it with I've seen it with older people that are older than I am anyways, where they're like so worried about how much and they're so rich, right? And it's just like, how much do you think you're like, I had an old guy that I go to farmer's coffee with and he said, Gary, when you're old, you just don't spend that much. Like he chain smoked cigarettes. So I guess he wasn't counting on living a long time anyways, but like, it's just the idea of like, you don't spend a lot when you're old, right? I mean, maybe you travel a bit and stuff, but you're not out and about doing stuff like you are with a young family. I think that it's fascinating in our culture where it's not even about owning per se. It's just such a prestige thing of like just financial, gain is it's so highly emphasized that, and I think that's unhealthy. And I think the other thing that I've struggled with even now, because we're not on a farm right now and I kind of want to be on a farm, like, just selfishness or whatever, just feel like it'd be nice. It's fascinating how quickly our homes become so important to us. And like, when I talk to people, like people talk about moving, like it's just the idea of letting go of that. Like, I'm like, that's at least my wife and I are on the same page. Like, I just like, hey, we can live anywhere as long as we're together as a family. We could live in another country, another province. Like, obviously, there's beautiful things about living here, and it's a great place to live in a lot of ways. But there'd be lots of benefits to living in the middle of sticks up country or in the prairies or on the East Coast, right? So I think people get way too attached to their material stuff, and the house is usually the start of that, where it's like, this is our property, and I've got these flower beds, and I've got this little greenhouse I built, and like, heaven forbid I have to like uproot the apple cart and let it go and move to not having that, right? So.
And I think one thing that God taught me too, just having rented the last couple of years, is none of this is mine anyway. Like if I owned it, he's asked me to steward it, or if I rent it, he's asked me to steward it. Like it's all a gift and it's not ours. And so that kind of changes it as well, because then you just kind of view it as like, hey, I just need to be faithful with this property that I've been living on and be given, and try to steward it well, take good care of it. Like I try to be the best renter possible. Like I think about that. Like I want to, I'm thankful for the place I get to rent. So
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just think about it that way. Yeah.
And I think nobody knows, like, this is a joke on Twitter, but like there's guys that do rent in cities, and they have a personal net worth of 5 or 10 million, and they're making 200,000-300,000 a year just in the stock market on dividends. Nobody knows. Like, who cares? Like, it's just none of your business. If someone chooses for, like you say, for whatever reason you have, it's a free country, right? And people that like owning homes should be thankful that there are good renters that want to rent from them. And
I hope to probably own a home again one day. Like, I'm not against owning homes. I'm just saying that, like,
in this season,
it's
you're
not
fine.
a sense of my value. Like, or
you don't feel like less than because you're renting.
Of course not. Like, if anything, I think some people are crazy for what they have, because they're like, they got to make sure that they are packed. Their businesses getting lots of business, or they're working tons of hours, or like they need to have double incomes. And like my wife doesn't work, and it was like,
she works a lot, but she just works at home.
That's right. Yeah. She does have a cool painting
My wife
little business. Seems
that is cool.
She's starting to do so.
Yeah, the painting was cool.
Yeah. What are your priorities? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Do you think in our society, in our culture that women staying at home is valued?
No.
No? Not even in our community?
Maybe, more so than the culture, but I would say even not that much in our communities. I think it should be. I think it's one of the most epic things in the world that the boys have a mom that's always around.
Yeah, that's pretty special.
I think it's you put a note in here that says some churches seem to be more concerned about whether someone attends their church than how their relationship with the Lord is. And then
I just really, really fascinating just hearing stories, obviously being in church leadership at our church, but just fascinating how people cling so tightly to their particular being so important that the person is like, I can see people saying, hey, like, do you have a good reason to leave? Because I think just flippantly leaving churches is not wise as a Christian. I think being part of a Christian community is important. And I don't think we should leave easily per se, like if that's your church family.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of us should have a gun held to our head and go into the church we go to. And that's, to me, from what I hear, that's what it's like, right? And I've seen, as an elder, some of the nasty letters that people get, and the like. And I guess even if everything they said, which it's not, but even if everything they said in the letter was true, it's definitely not done in love. And so then I go back to kind of scripture where it talks about, I've just been reading a lot, just the Bible reading plan I'm in, right? It's in Leviticus and Numbers, and now in the New Testament in Mark and Luke. And it's like, well, are you doing it in love? And I think there's just a lot of lack of love in how people do it, right? To varying degrees, obviously, right? But I think it feels like so much church leadership is fear driven, just the insecurity of man, of kind of thinking, oh man, like, rather than just being able to have a dialogue, it's like closing in tight, keep everybody close, don't let anybody, like, if you are sure that you're in the truth, if you're sure that you are nailing it, you should have no problem with your people listening to anything, because, you know, if they have enough truth coming into them, it's like, hey, you wouldn't worry
and you
about
should be
it.
willing to share your truth with everybody
Yeah.
online. And
Yeah, everywhere,
talk
right?
about it.
Yeah, but when everything's secretive on your side and you don't want anyone else to go out and hear anything else, it's kind of like, ugh, like, you know, show me something. I mean, I could use really derogatory language to describe what that is.
Cult or something?
You know, I think that the idea of like, no, just the fear based from the leadership. It's like I say,
I think
if it's done in love and you're truly concerned about someone's soul, I guess that's where the comment came from, where it seemed so important for people to be there, but not, hey, we miss you, or we need you here as part of our church family, or we.
But if you're really concerned about someone's soul, you're going to be not asking about like, are you going to church or not? You're going to be asking like, let's open the Bible together.
Where is your walk with God?
What's happening?
Right? Like, so anyways, those things were just kind of on my heart. I put it on there.
I mean, it makes me think back of the money question about renting and stuff, and Randy Elkhorn, how early on in his career he wrote all the royalties of his books away.
That's pretty interesting.
And he sold millions of books, and so he's would have made millions of dollars, but because he wrote it all away to some board, when he got arrested and sent to jail for protesting outside an abortion clinic, they went and took all of his wealth from him. And if he would have still owned all those books and the rights to them, they would have taken millions and millions of dollars. But because of God, he chose to be faithful in this way, whatever he felt convicted on.
Yeah.
You know, like how often do we do that kind of stuff? It's you don't know what God's doing. And how he might use things. Like I even thought about it in terms of like me renting here. If I could see the government one day being like, oh, we're going to confiscate your property. Oh, wait, you don't own property. We can't actually do anything. Like, I'm just saying that God's ways are not our ways.
No,
like
they're not our ways.
He asks us to be faithful and obedient one day at a time.
Yeah, listen to this. This is Mark 7, okay? What makes people unclean? The Pharisees, for those that are not Christians listening to this, highly doubt there can't be too many people that are not Christians.
These are like the very
religious. They were hyper religious. There's 4 different groups. We actually had a big Sunday school class on this about Sunday night about all the Sadducees, and I forget the other ones. But the Pharisees gathered around Jesus. So did some of the teachers of the law. All of them had come from Jerusalem, and they saw some of his disciples eating food with unclean hands. That means they were not washed. The Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands to make them clean. That's what the elders teach. When they come from the market, they do not eat unless they wash, and they follow many other teachings. For example, they wash cups, pitchers, kettles in a special way. So the Pharisees and the teachers of the law questioned Jesus. Why don't your disciples live by what the elders teach? And they asked, why do they eat their food with unclean hands? And he replied, Isaiah was right. He prophesied about you people who pretend to be good. He said, and then he goes back to quote Isaiah, these people honor me by what they say, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship doesn't mean anything to me. They teach nothing but human rules, Isaiah 29:13. You have let go of God's commands, and you are holding on to teachings that people have made up. Jesus continued speaking. You have a fine way of setting aside God's commands. You do this so you can follow your own teachings. Moses said, honor your father and your mother. He also said, anyone who asks for bad things to happen to their father or mother must be put to death. But you allow people to say that what might have been used to help their parents is Corban. Corban means a gift set apart from God. So you no longer let them do anything for their parents. You make the word of God useless by putting your own teachings in its place. And you do many things like this. Anyways, he goes on and on. It's super fascinating. But like, it's interesting in the reading I'm doing now, it's Leviticus at the same time, and it's like all the laws, right? And like when the veil temple was torn after Jesus died on the cross, and those laws are gone.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason that we don't, only wear certain types of fabric. Like we've made a lot of these new rules ourselves in weird cultural ways, right? But it's fascinating how many things we all do in every denomination where we make weird things, and I think that it's just been enlightening for me to read that and just be convicted of, hey, what are the areas? I have it often, right? Or even in my own family, I'm looking at my kids and I wasn't brought up to be doing that. How come he's doing, just super judgmental, critical, and be like, hey, what do I really care about? Well, I care about his heart. Where's his heart at, right? Yeah. And it's hard to remember that.
I think the only way we remember it is if we continue to try to focus in on ourselves and put ourselves in positions that people can speak into us and ask, hey, where's your heart at? Not where's your business at, or whatever it is else, and stay in the Word and let yourself be changed.
Less talking about the weather conversations.
Yeah. which is hard. I mean, this is why I love the evening service I go to at church, because we give a meal before you go to worship together, and you can actually like talk about things more than just the weather.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Those 1-minute conversations in church on Sunday morning, I despise.
Okay. I love the crowd there too. It's a completely different group of people, right? I mean, we go and serve, right? And we teach Sunday school on Sunday nights. It's like, I don't know. I enjoy it.
I was texting our buddy Mike this week, who's been on the podcast before, and he said, we were talking a little bit about what's going on in the world, and he said something interesting. He said,
would he be fine if it was said on the podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He goes, we are doing well and living in anticipation of what's unfolding spiritually, politically, economically, etc. Such amazing times. Like in the days of Noah, nobody paying attention. God is good. Blessings, bro.
Amen.
And
wise man.
Yeah, but it struck me
nobody is paying attention.
No one is paying attention. No. There's still so much.
It's really interesting. You know Wes Huff, right?
Yeah.
From Politics Canada. He was just on the Diary of a CEO, which is a pretty famous podcast. Marie listens to it. I've never listened to it. Yeah, it's worth listening to. For those of you who've never heard of Wes Huff or Diary of a CEO, that one you would listen to. It was really, Marie said he did an amazing job. It was just beautiful. And then I went in the comment section on YouTube, and he posted the Diary of a CEO guy. Sorry, I don't know his name. Do you know
Stephen Burlett?
Okay. Obviously, very well known, very famous man, very well spoken, questioning, honest, obviously, about where his heart was at with Wes, which was cool. Similar to you. Curious.
Yes.
Similar to you.
Let's go.
Just ask the questions, right?
You learn.
No, and I think of as a non-Christian when you're just vulnerable enough to ask the questions and search your own heart about, like, everybody's lost, right?
That's
like outside of Jesus, everybody, no matter how put together they seem, they're lost, right?
So that is such an important lesson for church leaders, and like what we were talking about earlier. Like when people have real questions and don't understand things, if you just say, this is the way that it is, or our forefather said this, or
when someone says the word forefathers, I just
that's not an argument. That's not how an argument works.
No.
You can't say when you're buying a tractor, oh, this is my grandpa's bought these tractors. He said they were the best.
That's why people still use John Deere, Mike, I would say, because their grandpa drove a John Deere, and they indoctrinate the children, right?
Exactly.
We got the kids driving John. I'm trying to change that. I got the Schaefer little wheel loaders.
If you're not getting answers from your church leaders, go find church leaders that'll give you answers.
Not
like,
sure
go
how
look.
Not
seek
sure
the
how
Bible.
I went from the. How come I always turn something really important into talking about selling tractors?
I jumped in.
Well, so on his podcast, on his Instagram feed this week, he posted the question, who should I have on my show? And thousands of comments, right? And there's one guy that kept getting suggested. Now, I'm not going to go find it now, but it was just like, it's so disturbing. It was some like, spiritual, like wonky guru guy. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating what people are filling their minds with and the stuff where people are trying to find their inspiration and their hope. Like it's really sad actually, but ultimately, anyways, it was just a great podcast. So just give it a plug there.
Yeah.
People want to listen to that.
It is amazing what people will listen to, and how much, like I heard this week, I was talking to a teacher that was in the public system here. And there's a kid in his school that I think Paul Henderson was writing about this, but he wanted to one of his teachers is a Sikh, so wears a turban. And so he came into class because he's Indigenous. And so he, with a straw hat and a feather in it, and like, you're not supposed to wear that in class. He's like, it's my religion. Like this is what I do. And this teacher, not the Sikh guy, but in the school had shared with me that he had got upset that, when he was teaching about evolution and the different ways that the world was created, that he also said there's a third way that people teach, which is the creation way, and that he got in a lot of trouble for even mentioning that. Wow. Even mentioning it, that there was another way. But ironically, like there's more evidence that Jesus was real than there is for Julius Caesar. Like way more. It's not like this isn't just a mystical Bible thing. Like, no, that's
what I believed when I was younger, eh?
What, mystical Bible thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was just kind of like, potato. What are you talking about? This is just
exactly, But when you find out that crazy. It's like, he was a real guy that like everyone was waiting for the Messiah, and this guy from an unknown town that nobody talked about started calling himself God, and then started doing miracles, and like all of a sudden the evidence goes, and he raised himself from the dead, and all that, like that should get taught because it's an historical event, right? Like it's not just you're not teaching religion, you're teaching history. But I mean, history got wiped.
History's getting wiped.
Yes.
Most Canadians think that we should bring back the statues of John A. Macdonald. Did you know that they were taken down in Toronto? Took them all down. They're trying to whitewash our Canadian history.
Yeah, that kind of happened like during the Black Lives Matter thing, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I remember in History 11, we had like big debates, me and another kid at school, right?
Rick Attenborough?
No, I think it was Justin Westring.
Wasn't it you and him that made a bet about becoming prime minister?
No, that's
first?
me and my brother. I still plan on winning that, by the way.
Okay.
I need to start my political campaign soon. But John McDonnell was a drunk, right?
Yeah, he was the first prime minister of Canada.
Yeah, I think he was an alcoholic. Anyways, one of us was the drunk and the other one was mock. I think Justin was the drunk and I was the serious. I think it was Wilford Laurier, if I'm not mistaken. So I was making fun of him. Anyways, it was a fun history class.
That reminds me, I went to Forum for Young Canadians, which is like you got to go to Ottawa in grade 11, I think.
Were you doing the right things enough to go to that? Didn't you have to be pretty academic and intelligent? Or?
I was the nerd when it came to politics.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyways, so we got to ask Peter McRae some questions. And he had just stopped dating Belinda Stronach. And so Peter McRae was a conservative. His girlfriend was also an MP, conservative MP, Belinda Stronach. And she walked the floor to join the Liberals. This is 20 years ago, probably. And but they were dating. He didn't know. And so it was this big controversy. So he
was the one that left the important documents at some inappropriate lady's house. Did you hear that story?
No.
Anyways, this is all scandal. Just gossip from my childhood.
But I got up and I asked questions like, "What's your opinion of Belinda Stronach?"
In the House of Commons?
No, in one of the side room things that where all the kids are in. But he's like, "I'm going to choose not to answer that." And then like later, some of the leaders like, "Kyle, you can't ask those questions." And a few other leaders like, "That's what journalists do. They ask anything."
Yeah.
That's
you were curious back then too. Or just a crap disturber.
Yeah, there's a little bit of both. You know what questions? Those are the questions I'm genuinely curious about. How people are going to respond to these things? Tough questions. Usually, you can see how people
see their true character. Anyways,
more and more.
Yeah.
Not if you give them softballs.
I'm a softball guy,
like we do here.
Yeah. Kyle, we're gonna wrap this up.
Nice and short. Thanks for listening. If you need a job, message me.
Yeah.
Or if you need good employees,
take over for me on this podcast.
Message me. I need a replacement.
I went from being like really high, like I had a whole like a funny thing planned for this show, which I'm not going to tell you about because I'll do it another time. Okay. But then I was just like, today I wasn't feeling it. Like I don't want to be on here. I called 3 friends on the way here to try to get them to take my spot or join or anything. But no.
If you have people that you think we should have on, that should interview on the Furious the Curious show, or that we should have here on the Briefcase in the Barn.
Heather Moz is going to join us.
Yes, I messaged her. I have a call with her this afternoon.
Yeah.
She's going to join us on the Briefcase in the Barn?
Yeah, just get her to come on the Briefcase in the Barn.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll do both. But
yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay.
She'd be a great guest on
Heather Moss is MLA for British Columbia, right?
For our local riding.
Your local riding, yeah. Okay, love and peace. Hey guys, if you enjoyed that episode and were blessed by it, would you be willing to support the show? That would help a lot in creating more content, improving the quality of the content, putting the production value, getting more guests on, and me being able to spend more time and energy towards it. So if you're interested in doing that, you can click up here and it'll take you to a support page. But you can also subscribe to the podcast by clicking over here and doing that. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.